Hello everyone and welcome to A History of Video Games by Brittany McKenna. Have you ever wondered where and when video games began? How did video games become what they are today? In this week's podcast, I will attempt to answer those questions and give you insight into how and why gaming has become one of the fastest growing industries in the world. A.S. Douglas created Noughts and Crosses, what we would refer to today as tic-tac-toe, in 1952. The game was created at Cambridge University on a giant computer called the Electronic Delay Storage Automatic Calculator. William Higginbotham was the first American to invent an interactive computer game. Higginbotham is also credited for helping to create the first atom bomb. Tennis for Two was created in the Brookhaven National Laboratory in 1958 as a means of entertainment for the guests of the laboratory's annual open house. In 1962, another gaming breakthrough emerged. Stephen Russell from MIT created Space War, a basic game in which the objective was to pilot your own spacecraft around the screen and attempt to destroy your opponent. The game was created on a massive PDP-1 computer, which meant it was mostly played in universities and research facilities. In 1971, 3 Minnesota college students created a computer game called the Oregon Trail. Despite its creation in 1971, the game doesn't actually become hugely popular until the 1980s and 90s. The Oregon Trail was a pioneer simulation computer game that was distributed across the country on floppy disks. 1972 was an explosive year in the history of video games. First, Nolan Bushnell and Al Alcorn of Atari set up the very first Pong arcade game in Andy Capp's Tavern in Sunnyvale, California. The game actually stopped working because it got played so much that it became jammed with quarters. In the same year, Ralph Baer's brainchild, Odyssey, was released by Magnavox as the very first home console. In 1977, the first multi-game home console was released. Atari offered several new features that made millions of Americans become excited about video games. The Atari console featured a joystick, interchangeable cartridges, games in color, and game selection and difficulty switches. In July 1980, Toru Iwatani of Namco created Pac-Man. Iwatani was inspired by a missing slice of pizza when creating Pac-Man. 2 years later, Miss Pac-Man became the best-selling arcade game of all time. 1981 brought the creation of one of the most well-known video game characters in the world. Donkey Kong, created by Shigeru Miyamoto, introduced the beloved Jumpman, known around the world as Mario. Donkey Kong also featured 4 levels, which at the time was 3 more levels than most other video games. Handheld gaming was revolutionized with the release of the Nintendo Game Boy in 1989. The Game Boy was actually not the first handheld gaming device, but it was well received by the public due to its good gameplay, ease of use, and its long battery life. In 1994, the Entertainment Software Association established the Entertainment Software Rating Board. The ESRB now includes 6 rating symbols and 31 content descriptors. 1995 saw the release of the first Sony PlayStation console in the United States. The PlayStation caught the attention of the American consumers due to its significant price difference in comparison to the Sega Saturn. The PlayStation cost $100 less than the Sega Saturn. The Nintendo 64 was released in 1996. It was marketed as the first true 64-bit game system. It offered exciting 3D games such as Mario 64 and The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. The Sega Dreamcast was truly the first of its kind. It offered a VMS memory card and PDA. Most importantly, it had a built-in 56 kbps modem, which allowed for online gameplay. All game systems we currently have today come equipped with built-in modems. Popular Magazine believed that the Sega Dreamcast was, quote, one of the most important and innovative products of 1999. 1 year later, in 2000, Sony released the PlayStation 2, a 128-bit console that was the first game console to have better graphics than a PC. The PS2 also was the first console to use DVD technology. Game cartridges are now a thing of the past. In 2001, Microsoft joined the console war by releasing the Xbox. The Xbox Series has become one of the most popular and profitable consoles of all time. Games such as Halo Combat Evolved captured the attention of millions of fans and avid video game players. Realizing the potential of video games, the U.S. Army unveiled a new online game called America's Army, which was created to attract new Army recruits. The game was released in 2002 and was free to the public. The game cost $6 million to develop and was the #1 online action game. Over the past decade, video games and game consoles have become increasingly more popular. Major milestones over the past decade include the release of the Xbox 360 in 2005, the Nintendo Wii in 2006, Rock Band's release in 2007, World of Warcraft, a massively multiplayer online game, reached 10 million subscribers in 2008. Farmville and Angry Birds were created in 2009 on new platforms such as Facebook and the iPhone. Minecraft was released in 2010. Skylanders was introduced as the first augmented reality game in 2011, and free-to-play became the dominant business model in 2014. Video games are constantly developing and changing. In the future, we can expect even better and more lifelike graphics, bundled online apps such as Netflix, and maybe even more development in the augmented reality spectrum of gaming. Video games have significantly impacted our culture and will continue to do so in the future.
Game over. Game over. Game over.